Hello and welcome to High Five Fitness. I'm Denet, the host and producer. This is episode 23. The big question is, who won the debate? Was it the paleo or the vegan crowd? Today we're going to be diving in depth and looking at a couple of the clips from FreedomFest and also from our previous episode on the paleo versus the vegan to see what we can learn from those and who won the debate. With me in the studio, I have my good friend and trainer, Brian Champ. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Well, thanks for joining me. I'm looking forward to having you here. So right off the bat, I have to say I had a bias going into these that I follow. My diet's closer aligns to the paleo than it does the vegans. So I'm going to say coming into the debate, I felt more aligned with the paleos. How did you feel coming into the discussions?
Agreed. I definitely follow more of a paleo type of lifestyle, but after listening to John Mackey from Whole Foods, I definitely feel that he did a great job in presenting statistics. And when it came to the other John, the Paleolithic John,
yes,
he was
Durant.
John Durant. He went more into the history, and again, from me as a listener or a viewer, I just kind of went more into the stats rather than the history. But that was more the first time. The second time I listened to it, I kind of felt more that Paleolithic John
John Durant
did make some very good points. So it's hard to say, but I do follow more of a paleo type of diet going into this thing.
Well, I want to cover a couple points. I thought both Michelle, who we had on our show, Michelle Brown, and also John Mackey, they both pointed out that paleo is about more than just what you eat. It's about a lifestyle. Right. And that was a key that I actually give them a point for winning, or they opened my mind up more, because I went in with the paleo mindset, and I must say I'm going to give one up on the vegans on the debate, because they made me think.
Yes.
And they got me thinking, well, I should be eating more plants.
Yes.
So I want to show a clip from it, and then I want to go in and discuss what I see as some weaknesses and a couple things that they both missed, and also a few things they got right. So let's check out a clip from that debate so our viewers can see what we're talking about, and then we'll get into it in some depth.
Sounds good.
All right?
Yep.
So first I want to set the table by, pun intended, just talking a little bit about the overall macro condition that we find ourselves in today in the United States. The United States is a remarkably unhealthy nation, which I'm about to demonstrate to you. And obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases. What people don't realize is these diseases are not common in rural societies that eat traditional diets. They are really a product of modern civilization and modern dietary patterns. And it's my position that these diseases can either be completely avoided or delayed until you're really, really old. I think humans have evolved as omnivores that were primarily plant-based omnivores. And that is the natural diet, to eat mostly plants, supplemented with some animal foods when you can get them. That's how we evolved, and I'd still argue that's an incredibly healthy diet. I am personally a vegan for ethical reasons. That might come in later. 2 years.
In relation to that question, one issue that I'll bring up is the effectiveness. I want to question the effectiveness of vegetarianism to actually change the factory farm system, because it's vegetarianism and veganism is essentially, from an economic standpoint, a boycott on meat. But boycotts only work if you can get a significant portion of people to engage in them to change the behavior of the major players. But if 5% of the population or 2% of the population doesn't eat meat, You know, the big agribusinesses lose some money, but it's a one-time hit, and then they turn around and sell industrially grown soybeans as Boca burgers right back to vegans and vegetarians. Whereas if you get a bunch of folks that are willing to pay top dollar for properly raised animals, properly caught fish, that creates a profit motive to get entrepreneurs to actually create a better system.
Next question. My business model.
Okay, well, that was good for our viewers to catch a look at the debate, and I really like the way John points out the problems. John Mackey of Whole Foods points out the problems with diets, with what Americans eat. So I'm totally on board with that. The thing, let's just cut through it. The thing both the paleo and the vegans get right is they eliminate over-processed foods. I think they do a great job on that. As you pointed out, though, Michelle Brown and John Mackey are exceptional vegans. So tell me what you thought about that. They're not your everyday.
Right. I mean, I've been in the health and fitness industry for 24 years now, and I have vegans coming to me looking for help, and I do. I will give them a healthy vegan or a vegetarian diet. I would usually try to stray them to a vegetarian diet to get them a little more animal protein in, whether that be eggs or healthy dairy sources, and I would generally recommend a raw source, and that's a whole nother show. But
you said not the raw source, right?
No, I would recommend a raw source.
You'd go raw?
I would go raw.
Oh, I think
yes.
food should be cooked. I don't think they should be all raw.
Okay.
Cooking makes them bioavailable. I mean, that was a massive advantage to humans when we figured out how to cook our food.
But the downside of that is there is a number of people that have a dairy issue, and one doctor I know, he tests every single person that walks into his clinic, and 80% show an intolerance to casein. So a lot of people believe that it's a lactose intolerance, and it really is a casein issue, or both. And the issue is they're not doing well on dairy, number one. The question is it the same problem with raw or pasteurized? And a lot of people believe that it is the pasteurization that causes the dairy intolerance.
Okay, you're talking about raw dairy versus pasteurized. Got it. Yeah, there is some advantages to raw dairy because you keep more of the probiotics and enzymes alive in there. But interestingly, technically, a strict vegan or a strict paleo, neither of them will touch dairy, so they're both on board there. Yep. Which brings me to one of my main issues. Both of them eliminate some good healthy foods. Right. For the vegan, we can, grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic meats, with a lot of those are just really good foods to be eating. Yes. Now, for the paleo, they throw out even grains like steel-cut organic oats, and I think we have so many foods that we shouldn't be eating that we want to avoid over-processed foods, but we don't need to throw out good, healthy food. So that's one of my main complaints with both of them. Neither of them look at how to maximize health. Okay, we want to get rid of fast food. We want to get rid of these over-refined foods, but there's value in healthy foods, and they're both eliminating healthy foods. Right. So that's one complaint I have with both of them. All the bodybuilders know portion size matters, and neither of these diets are looking at portion size. I have CrossFitter friends, and they're out there eating foods with large amounts of duck fat and other fats that, yes, they're good for you in a certain amount, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get ultra lean if you're eating tons of calories, period. So I think looking at portion size has value, and that's something neither the vegans or the paleos look at portion size. Mm-hmm. That's my main two things. One, they're throwing out good foods. Two, neither of them are looking at portion size. And I think those are really important things that people can benefit from.
Mm-hmm. So I think the big question is, what is a good food? What is health? What is being healthy? I think that's the real question here. And I think every one of the speakers, both on your show in the past, as well as the two Johns, they both touched on it, but I don't think they went into details on it because everybody has an agenda here, and that's the biggest problem. But that's also how you sell books, products, and and food is like a religion. So I feel like at some level I can't go either way because I'm in the middle personally, and the more you know, the more you get confused. So I feel like I'm coming across that's somewhat confused myself, and I am actually, because both of them have great points. Both have certain parts to them that that are needed to be a well-balanced diet. But the question is, what is healthy again? And again, both of them touch this concept of, you have to kind of figure out for yourself. And that's my biggest thing is, I think somebody's already created it, but I've been wanting to create a book called Intuitive Eating Program. And I think there's one out there, but my whole thing is, how do you feel before you eat, immediately after, and 1 to 2 hours later? And so, for example, Denet, like on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, how do you feel in terms of your overall energy, vitality, focus, concentration, digestion? Just throw out a number, 1 to 10. 10, you've never felt better.
Well, I'm feeling 8 or 9. I had my oatmeal and my casein protein that you guys don't like. I had my protein powder.
So you're in the zone.
Stirred into my oatmeal this morning,
Terrific.
and I'm feeling it.
Good.
I mean, I like my organic oats, and I'm not convinced that protein powders are. I mean, I think there's a lot of health benefits from them, and that's something neither of those diets really looked at the macros. All the bodybuilding community knows. You want to play with your macros if you want to get lean. You want your fats, proteins, and carbohydrates in certain ratios. One of my favorite things is carb cycling. If you do a couple days of a few days of, I like 4 days of low carbs, 3 or 4 days of low carbs, followed by 1 day of low fats, high carbs. And I think there's lots of benefits from cycling your macros and changing them around. So looking at macros, there's a bunch of benefits. The other thing we can learn from bodybuilders, other than macros, is you don't want to follow 100% of the same diet year round. What are your goals? If you're an athlete, neither of the speakers addressed someone that's an athlete. They're out there, they're training. They've got completely different dietary requirements than someone that's sitting at their desk all day. I mean, what's your exercise? What's your lifestyle? So you need to get your diet to match your lifestyle. And someone training for a bodybuilding show or CrossFit Games, they're going to have very different requirements than a weekend warrior or someone that's trying to lose some weight and they get in 3 light workouts a week. So it's got to be, they have to support your goals. And you look at that, and your goals change through the year. So if I want to maximize my strength, my calorie goals are going to be different than if I'm trying to come in with the lowest body fat, percentage fat.
All very, very true. I dabbled in the fitness world a little bit with, I was a writer for Miss Fitness magazine, actually. I didn't tell you that.
Miss Fitness?
Miss Fitness, yes.
So what were you doing writing for Miss Fitness?
I was working for the editor, Greta Blackburn, actually.
No kidding.
So I was one of her trainers, and I wrote a number of articles. I dabbled in that field, like I said, and again, what is healthy? So again, that's a fitness world. Fitness is much different than health. So those women that I worked with, I mean, they're cycling through, they're getting lean 6 weeks out of competition. They look awesome, as do most models before a photo shoot, but then they bulk up and they're overweight, a couple of days later. So
good point.
So again, my goal is to, what is a healthy diet for you? I totally understand that we need to deplete carbs in order to get a certain look, but how do we stay healthy and fit year-round without doing these extreme cycles? And again, a lot of those ladies that, they were like, essential body fat for a female is like 12 to 14%. These ladies were like 6% with abs, and I don't see girls walking around the street like that every day.
Well, 6% is not sustainable for women, but they can have lower body fats based upon their exercise and diet. We are omnivores. We're made to eat a wide variety of foods, and that's my beef with both of these. No pun intended against the vegans. But my beef is that both of these diets eliminate healthy foods, and that's not something you want to do. Let's watch another clip from the debate, and then we'll come back, and I have a few more points to make.
I mean, how we cook fermented food. I eat a mix of raw and cooked foods. Foods that are organic or local often are more nutrient dense from good soil, so it's absolutely important.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's obvious you ought to eat as fresh food as possible.
Well, one of the knocks that people have is that to eat a vegan diet, it's that, the vegetables taste bland, or they don't like the way it's cooked, or they don't like how they taste, and that, your mother would always say, eat your vegetables. You never really liked it. How do you make eating vegetables something that's tasty and people like?
This is a very
Put butter on them.
This is a very important.
That's bad. Paleos don't like butter.
This is very important. You will learn to like whatever food you eat. That's a simple truth. You can run and discover that yourself with your own experiments. Every culture likes their own food they grow up on. The trick here, and our palates and our taste buds turn over very quickly. And I've taught myself. I grew up on the standard American diet. I just grew up eating crap, and I never ate any vegetables. And I re-educated my palate by, if you expose yourself to food somewhere between 10 to 15 times, you'll learn to like it. It'll go from, I don't like that, to, yeah, I don't really like it, but I can eat it, to, that's not so bad, to, that's good. I know that, have another helping of that. And we should teach our palates to eat the healthiest foods we can. Because there's no loss in pleasure. The thing that holds people back and prevents them from eating a healthy diet is their fear that they're going to lose pleasure. And the secret to that is to know that if you continue to persevere and you continue to educate your palate, you will learn to like the foods that you eat. And it's easy to test, to do the empirical test for that. And of course it helps if you develop skill in cooking. I happen to like vegetables, but I oftentimes, he puts butter on it. I might put a bean sauce on it. I might create some kind of nut sauce and mix it with the vegetables in a little bit. There's lots of interesting ways to make vegetables, which I think taste pretty good, taste even better. But it does require, one of the things that's being lost in America is any type of average person's skill in cooking. And if you want to be healthy, you're not going to get it at restaurants. And you should, one of you in the family unit should become a skilled cook. It'll repay itself in pleasure and health many, many times over.
Our last two questions. Things you find in a normal CBC don't always tell the true picture of a person's health. I mean, we see a lot of stage 4 cancer patients over at the Stem Cell Institute, and they have actually perfect CBCs. They're actually normal down the line. And so you really can't get a true measure of somebody's health by looking at that. You really need to look at the person's immune system. He talked about the microbacteria within the gut, and then looking at what's going on within the lymphocytes as a real measure of health.
I'm very pro-cholesterol. I think
time will tell.
There's studies that have come
You're
out.
a young man. Let's see how it works out for you. It's not being vegan that makes people healthier. It's getting the crap out of your diet and eating mostly plants, and eating. And something John and I do agree about. You've got to, in some ways, experiment, and you've got to find what foods work best for you and what foods don't work best for you.
Okay, well, I wanted to jump right into, you saw both Johns were talking about cholesterol. I have to say, my thinking, I align more with the paleo side. I think we do need some cholesterol. I have this book, The Magic of the Cholesterol Numbers, and I learned a lot from reading this. Having ultra-low cholesterol levels is not something that's necessarily healthy. You want to have a good, it depends on the ratio of good to bad. I'm not even sure good and bad are the correct. You want a certain ratio. You want your cholesterol to be in a certain range at a certain ratio. Also, particle size matters. It's not something that the lower is better. In fact, lower cholesterol has more risk of stroke. I personally have been working to bring up my good cholesterol, so I've been looking at eating certain foods. Pistachios help, actually, to bring up my good cholesterol. Cholesterol helps create your body makes hormones out of it. So I think it's gotten a bad rap from the media. And my call to action is, I think John Mackey of Whole Foods, he needs to come up to speed on cholesterol. I'm going to send him this book and ask him that he reads this. Next year when I'm at FreedomFest, I want to hear an updated talk from John Mackey. That's my challenge to him. I want him to get up to speed on current trends in cholesterol. It's a wake-up call and a challenge for him to come back next year and to revise his opinion in the take that he's giving the folks that follow his Whole Foods program. Get them up to speed. John, get up to speed and get your cholesterol message straight.
And real quick on cholesterol, I do these detoxification programs. I have a 10-day vegetarian detox, not a vegan, and I have a 21-day animal protein-based detox. Both are getting rid of some of the key problematic foods. Gluten is gone. Pretty much I recommend getting rid of all grains in these programs. Dairy, added sugars, fruit and vegetables are okay. But it doesn't matter what program one does, whether it's a 10-day or the 21-day program, with or without animal proteins, both lower their cholesterol to have phenomenal results. Weight loss, fat loss occurs, change in lipids for the better. And there's some very similar, things there, So there's beans, there's fruits and vegetables, there's nuts. Actually, I'm sorry, most of the nuts are gone. Seeds are allowed, oils and fats. But the key thing is there's no grains, there's no dairy.
This is a temporary program?
Yeah, but a lot of people do continue because they get such phenomenal results. Why wouldn't you want to continue?
So I'm going to step in. I think that grains may be getting overbashed. Why they might not be they may have promoted people to have allergies, but a lot of these reactions might be caused from other things we're doing in society. We've overused and abused antibiotics. We have gone to these monocultures. We've genetically engineered food. So what if you go back and have grains that are a little bit more traditionally grown? And for example, if you ferment them, what if you have sprouted and fermented grains? I don't think we need to be eliminating those. They're easier to break down and they have healthy benefits. So fermentation is a very important part of getting the digestive right and having good health. And that's something that well, actually, the paleos do mention it. I'm not sure if they'll be eating fermented grains, but I think that people can benefit from having more fermented foods and having sprouted grains. I don't think people need to jump and totally abandon all grains right away. Abandon the over-processed ones that have been bleached and gone through the steel cut mill, or it's not steel cut, but your steel refining mills where they're completely pulverized and powdered. The Wonder Bread equivalents that really are not foods that we should be eating. But on the other hand, I'm not going to give up my steel-cut organic oats.
I don't eat oats all the time. I do eat them once in a while, so I'm not against oats. But when I'm trying to get someone lean, again, when I'm trying to get someone contest ready, or my population is really moms for the most part, and they come to me wanting to lose body fat, feel better about themselves, and grains are not going to help them, generally speaking. Again, using the example of what is an ideal or healthy food for a cow. A cow, if they eat grains, they're going to gain weight. They're going to gain fat. They're going to increase their diabetes as well. Where if they go on a grass-fed diet or eating alfalfa and other grasses that are natural, they're leaner. And that's the grass-fed beef concept.
I'll give you a good point there. I completely agree with you on that. Pastured meat. Not pasteurized, pasture-raised meat is awesome. It's great stuff. Right. And obviously the fatty acids.
It's not marbleized, right? So it's chewy.
It's not. It is leaner.
So people like that grain-fed beef because there's more fat in it.
Right. I would totally agree with you on those points.
So again, you made a comment on a show a couple sessions ago. You are what you eat, right?
No, I say you are what you eat. Eats. You got to look at the level down. Yes. What your cow eats is right. Is important. Yeah, what your chicken eats.
That's what I always say too. You are what you eat. You are what the animals ate.
Exactly.
So, So actually, one more thing on that. What does healthy mean? I just want to throw this in there because I just think this is super important. That I know you're an advocate of oatmeal and oats, and again, I'm not against it. I think the biggest issue is that we're all guessing here, and I think this is the take-home message for everybody, is that we're all guessing, and we kind of go to one side or the other, but at the end of the day, we have the technology to test now. So there's a lot of functional medicine practitioners out there that do specific lab testing to find out what foods you do best on. So my daughter, for example, had bags under her eyes, a distended belly. She started getting more and more sinus issues. She started getting croup from a young age. It just kept getting worse. She's now 6 years old. About 3 months ago, it got worse and worse. Tonsils were swollen. If she would have went to a Western doc, they would have taken her tonsils out probably, or soon, very, very soon.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I believe everything the result of food, so let's get it tested. I didn't want to take her blood, but finally we did it. And sure enough, here's what the 3 severe food allergies were: dairy, eggs, and beef. Okay, so you can like grass-fed beef all you want. I have no problem against grass-fed beef.
We haven't even talked about organic eggs.
I mean, it's just yeah. Okay, we haven't talked about it, yeah. But so dairy, again, maybe fine for you, but for my daughter, it's a severe poison. It's making her bloated, making her gassy, throwing her off, creating inflammation. Moderate sensitivities for her were pinto beans, and mild were blueberries. So again,
really, blueberries.
So it doesn't matter if she went paleo or vegetarian or vegan or whatever. Either way, she's going to be super inflamed, and she's not going to get rid of her problem until we do the right testing. So that's what's out there for us right now with technology, and it's just finding the right practitioner to do it.
Well, that's a great point. Getting the test, making modifications, learning how your body reacts. Like I said, we're omnivores. Yeah. We want to find out what works best with us. I wanted to address the point that John Mackey is he's a vegan for ethical reasons. Yeah. So we've got a couple minutes left here.
Yeah.
I thought John Durant made a good point. I took a trip to Brazil, and I saw where they're taking down this beautiful rainforest, and they're putting in fields of soy, and they're pulling water out of the Amazon in these different beds. So being a vegan is not necessarily good for the environment. Eating more soy, wheat, and these other crops that we have, you're still not necessarily doing things that are good for the ecology and the environment. And on top of that, eliminating animals, that is a really tricky question. Okay, for example, pigs they're not indigenous species here in California. So what about eating wild boars? Technically, if you take one out of the environment, you're doing good. So I mean, you can get some pretty interesting arguments on what's moral to eat and what's not. So I just want to say that I thought John Durant, the paleo side, he brought up some really good points there. I understand the protests, and we really need to change the factory farms. Looking at our modern food industry, that needs to change. Mm-hmm. So I completely agree with John Mackey on that. However, you don't need to go 100% to the full extremes of eliminating all animal products. You want to have things that were eaten or raised up in a sustainable means, or the most sustainable that you can find. So that's my take, is both of these speakers, both sides of the debate, I think what we're really looking at is how can we change our food industry? How can we eliminate our factory farms and these monoculture agricultural industries that we have? I want to thank our viewers, and I want to encourage people to get your health under control, make some changes, take some of Brian's advice, and go out there and work out. Brian, thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Thank you.
All right, it was good to have you on.